Welcome to Blue Balls 16. Well, are we done yet? Oh look, ghosts in... Wouldn't it make more sense for that to be ice monsters?
Well, I guess ghosts can be out in the ice mountains going by some folklore.
And yes, Terry, as you probably remember, that's actually yeah, well, not a power swap. It's actually a boss from the Talta village who came back as a normal enemy in true JRPG fashion.
What the heck?
Town. You're probably wondering, what does this town have to do with anything? Aside from giving us the ability to control the moon laser moons, this town has nothing to do with anything.
Oh, so this town is the one behind the moon
Alright,
lasers?
Silva, you beat Davila.
Why is it encapsulated in a green bubble?
Hello. Are you from around here? I've never seen you before.
Excuse me, ladies. Didn't you notice the giant 10-foot 10?
Actually, we're gonna explain that too. Don't worry.
You slipped in? From where? How? How do we get out?
There you go, too.
So
we don't know how we got in or whether we can get out. Is this a side quest?
Yeah, basically, the green barrier surrounding the city is one of those where you can enter, but you cannot leave.
Oh, great.
Basically, Tail, Nene felt like being a dick, and he decided to basically, ground the entire city.
No one can leave here. It's a shame since you're not from around.
The more the game passes, the less I understand Nene's not just motivations, but psychology in general. Sometimes he's just cold and manipulative. He's just a dick and tries to be a cat.
I'll just take one of Doug Walker's lines. There's a difference between being intentionally complex and sloppily complex. Like
which review is that from?
From the Disney December review of Aladdin and the King of Thieves.
Oh.
All right.
Oh.
Don't get me wrong. I really like that movie, but Doug kind of has a point that the motivations with the pirate.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Everyone wanted for this to become a calm, independent village. Oh, so it's a case of a monkey's paw.
His music is not fading in the slightest.
So they wanted independence, so he said, okay, take your independence and shove it up your not escaping asses. He said, if it's independence you want... I literally just called it.
Some 4th of July joke here.
If you can use magic, you might be able to destroy the barrier.
Okay.
With magic? Yes, that's what I just said, dummy. This barrier was cast with evil magic. Only magic could break it, I think. Pedro?
Sorry, I was typing.
So are we going to try to do it?
Yeah, we're going to try to use our magic.
But nope.
But there's a consequence of this tale.
Wait,
and you're gonna learn. No, you're gonna hate it. I can't even muster that joke.
You know what would be fun is if they pulled that Star Trek episode where everyone
Okay, Teo, remember, well, to be fair, they're foreshadowed by the quote-unquote lore. And now they run away from us.
Don't come near me!
Take a wild guess, Teo, why they're suddenly afraid of us.
They look like robots or monsters to them.
Not just that, Teo, but take a wild guess as to what specifically triggered them to be afraid of us.
The fact that they showcased their magic?
Ding ding! You get a gold star, Teo.
I'm a pacifist. Those who use magic should stay
racing
away.
people.
Wait, hold on. But wasn't the girl literally saying that we had magic with us and suggested that we do it?
My guess is Jova, she didn't expect it to be Nene style of magic.
Well, I mean, I guess that there's some justification.
Basically, what happens to is, considering Nene was the one who imprisoned here, obviously they hate Nene, so now that, since they can do the same kind of thing Nene can do, they're assuming that they're Nene's subjects.
Of course.
It's not entirely nonsensical. It kind of does make logical sense for them to do that, but yeah, as I'm sure Teo will mention, this is so cliche and...
Which is that really, really annoying.
I mean, this
But
sort
yeah.
of plot idea can work.
No, it can work, of course. It's just that the problem is that, much like with everything else, like Richie handles every single thing in this game with all the subtlety of a fucking anvil.
You know,
Well, honestly, I'm gonna say right
I'm
here,
not sure
subtlety
if
is not
oh,
the...
God.
Subtlety here isn't the biggest problem, because honestly, with racism, you can be as subtle or not as you want with it. What still matters is how you convey it. And I will say
Yeah, of
here, the
course.
way he's doing it is straightforward. However, here's the thing. When dealing with racism, you have to actually have the consequences of it really matter. And I don't just mean in the sense, of the main overarching plot. I mean, in this regard, it really has to matter. Like,
Q in Disney's Utopia. That's a great, brilliant example of that.
Speaking of, Pedro, correct me if I'm wrong,
I
but
hear that you use
because
magic.
I haven't seen
Yeah, we do.
a playthrough of that game in a
Those who
long
use
time.
magic
But
cannot be trusted.
didn't
And just why do you
Frollo
say
in
that?
Kingdom Hearts 3D
Your
didn't
magic
care
is
about the
no
fact that Sora was
different
using
than
magic?
magic. You
Well,
all
remember,
work
Teo, in that
Hold
game
on,
he was
hold on.
supposed.
Just answer my
Have
question
you
for
come to
now.
bring ruin upon our town?
It's
once
been a
again?
while since I played it, but I don't
No,
think
no,
so.
you're mistaken.
Yeah,
We're fighting
because
against
considering
just suddenly have the
of course,
ability to
considering the
use
fact
magic
that
one day,
they had to
but
tone
we
down
don't
the story
fully
for the game, but
understand
still the
why.
fact that
Please
a person
trust
like
me.
Frollo
There's nothing
would be
suspicious
justified
about us.
to accuse Sora of witchcraft or something,
Yeah,
and it's not
I-
doing. Congratulations to Sakaguchi. You're getting trumped by
You fight
what is
against
considered by the fan
Nene.
base one of the worst Kingdom
Is
Hearts
this
worlds
true?
ever.
wait.
Yes, it's the
People
truth.
hated that one? Was it because that we
Well,
didn't get to fight
well,
Frollo?
Well, Joe, but the thing is because not just because Disney is kind of ashamed of Hunchback of Notre Dame. Obviously, Nomura wasn't allowed to do the whole the church hunting gypsies thing in City of the
George
Park.
Lucas summed
Wow.
it up with best.
see?
They,
We're on
they
your side.
tried, but had to
Very
fail
well.
miserably
See-
because they had to tone down
I will
everything.
inform
Especially consider. I mean, back in the 90s they were able to get away with it, but now it's such a PC world that if there would be a big outrage and controversy if they did that in Kingdom Hearts. So I understand. I don't think it's a matter of Nomura intentionally dumbing it down, because the Square never had any trouble in handling mature
No, I'm
topics.
not blaming no more on that one. My point is, if you had to dumb it down, and the end result was bland to say the least, you might
They
as
should have
well
just picked
replace,
some of the different world,
replace it
yeah.
with something else.
Also,
I agree. I'm
Also on Disney's part, if that's really how they go about it, they're kind of overcorrecting the problem, because honestly, the whole
Yeah,
gypsy
it's-
hunting thing, yeah, people respect that that's a part of history, so honestly, that sort of stuff is okay to show in the animated film. I mean, yeah, okay, why not just give it a higher rating then?
Well, again, Jova, like I said, the thing is, it's two things, Jova. One, there's this terrible misconception from Western audiences that animated movies are
For
If-
kids.
for kids only, and sadly, this is something that's still kind of pervades and kind of makes executives, meddle in when filmmakers try
and then
to.
there's the monetary gain of a film
Yeah.
made for little kids means you'll get a lot more money from it.
Yeah,
That's one of
but
the
here's
main.
the thing
That's one
though.
of the main reasons why Zootopia is my new favorite Disney movie, because despite being a 2016 movie, it took some serious risks. I thought it was really bold of them to expect kids to just sit down and listen to this very mature topics that are current and important.
See, here's the problem, though. It's like, well, yeah, I might take that they're trying to be kid-friendly. The problem is that in Kingdom Hearts territory, nah, I'm sorry. Just give it a higher rating. That's what they did with, including worlds like Pirates of the freaking Caribbean.
Which got censored multiple times.
Which is weird, because despite the fact that, yes, the crossbows replace guns, they still have the
Not just
famous...
that scene where Jack gets stabbed.
Yeah, and they do show blood because Will has to cut himself and everything, and Jack still uses the gun to kill Barbossa.
Actually, hold on, guys. I'm gonna have to interrupt you because there's gonna be Okay, Jova, remember how we had a character development scene like in part 5? Well, part
Oh
5.
god.
Remember how we had the character development scene between Pedro and Kluke in part 5, Jova?
Yeah.
Well, here's a second character development scene.
Well, hey, I'll give it this. At least it's fleshed out for a side quest. And hey, we've gotten Okay, I'm not
No,
gonna
actually, this
say...
is not a side quest. This is mandatory. This is not part. This is not a side quest.
I was
Yeah,
Oh.
honestly, that small scene with Gyro and Shu,
Yeah.
you know, fighting
It
each
makes me
other
wonder
and
why we even made
yelling
those
at
rings.
Nene.
I mean, there's
Sorry,
good
not
luck
Nene.
charms.
Maru
They're
Maru.
no good at all.
That had some
No,
legitimate
that really
good
ticks me off.
potential to
Yeah.
be an actual good scene.
I know. Like, seriously, I
Feel
mean...
free to watch this to see
going to
if you got
save
this.
Kluke
This
no
is the
matter
second character
what.
development scene. This is where Jiro officially reveals to Shu that he's in love with Kluke.
See, I'll give it this. The scene leading up to this with Maru where he tells them to shut up to, you know, try and settle their differences. As
Hold
annoying
on,
as...
Joe. I might as well pay attention to this since this is actually.
I really like Kluke, so I'm going to save her no
Oh,
matter
not
what.
that pretentious guitar.
With a vocal tune, I think?
No, actually, this one is
that
just
all you have
instrumental.
to say? How do you feel about Kluke? Sometimes I
Also, the
think that you
subtitles
like
are
Kluke, too.
completely out of sync with the
A
dialogue.
while
Yeah,
back,
the timing has been.
Wow, that's Mighty Number 9 levels
Okay,
of
okay.
bad.
she'll think about
Here's
it.
my guess.
It's the
These
Japanese
are-
subtitles,
Yeah.
just translated. They didn't actually change the subtitles to be synced to the English dialogue.
Yeah, the timing is synced with the Japanese voiceover,
She
not the
said you
English
knew
one.
this.
That's lazy.
Kept it quiet.
Or just forgetful.
To be honest, I envied you, Shu.
Because you're the main protagonist.
I didn't
Okay,
know this.
basically what he's saying was,
I was really jealous.
Shu kind of shares a secret with Kluke in the sense that Kluke sometimes cries herself to sleep because of her parents being dead.
Freaks me out.
Okay,
Hey, Shu.
okay, you know what? I'm just gonna say it.
Oh, I get it. Choose the
You know what? You know what?
Or at
You know
least
what,
the attempt to
honey?
be the Sora.
You know what? You know what, honey? It's been years.
Because I'm sure
You know,
you've
your
made
parents died. That's sad. Well,
Wait.
that's life.
Hold on.
Get over it. My grandmother died when I was 15, and I didn't spend the rest of my life crying myself to sleep. Come on.
To be fair, psychology and whatnot, where her parents
Think
murder.
about
When she
Batman.
took both of our
Yeah, I
rings,
mean, it depends. I mean,
Not just-
well,
but-
it's
but-
one.
But that's
but hold
different.
on,
He
hold on.
literally saw his parents get shot right in front of him. That's
Sure,
Isn't that the case with Kluke though? Like her
Let's
parents were
make it a
murdered.
single example. One of my
If
point, what
anyone does
I'm trying to
anything to
convey,
harm
and
her,
I've heard
I'll
me something
never
before,
forgive
is that
'cause I know how brave she's always been,
people
no matter
see
how
that
tough
in
things have
different
gotten.
ways. And
Yeah, I guess.
Depending, hold on,
So,
depending
you really
on your
like it,
age
and I think
and your
she's special.
education,
Let's
basically
leave it at that.
what defines your very being,
Sounds
you
good
react
to
and
me.
cope with it in a
Tomorrow,
different way.
we're
Sure,
gonna bust
spending
out of here
entire
and chase down
years
Nene.
coping with
We're
it is
gonna
still
save
abnormal,
Kluke.
but
Right.
I wouldn't mind a person still holding some small bit of sadness or even a small trace of depression because of these essential trauma that they get when we were little.
Not to mention the factor of how long you have to spend your life without them. Like, you know, it's one thing to have a loved one taken from you when you're at a much older age, because, you know, in some cases you could say, okay, they've at least had their time to do stuff, and you got to
It's
know them well.
unfortunately- Oh, go ahead, Joa.
But say you lose them at the age of 10, and well... Yeah.
Much like with a lot of things involving psychology, which is still a science a medical science that it's currently in progress, and you cannot rely on it 100% on every single case. Every single case is different, needs to be treated and analyzed in its own way, and sometimes you will never actually figure out the answer anyway. So, one of your if you have a case similar to this, and you think you do not know what to do with it, the best thing to do is actually talk with someone and then deciding what to do.
What the?
Much like with everything else involving psychology, the worst answer. What the fuck? Sorry.
That was creepy, interesting, and I don't know
Turns
what.
out, okay, basically what happened while we were talking was, we talked to the village elder, and we convinced everybody that we're not Nene's subjects, so now
Wait.
Thomas and friends with us.
Wait,
And yes, the
wait.
village elder is the one controlling the barrier.
Actually, no. Surprisingly, no.
Also, so let me get this straight. By talking to the village elder, we were able to convince the whole town off screen that we're not bad, and thus ends the racism arc.
Yes.
Yes.
Are you freaking kidding me? These people are terrified because of what Nene did, and you're telling me that they're this quick to trust us? Like, there's more easygoing plots, but come on! At least have us be somewhat more challenged. I say this because this is gonna give kids the idea that racism can easily be solved that way.
Again, just show your kids Zootopia, kids. Parents,
It's
sorry.
you.
I mean,
What is this place?
Weird picture. Hey, old man, did you paint it?
That's
This
weird.
painting is
So,
said to portray
question.
the final days of our
how does he
ancient
trust us outside of just us telling
Okay,
him?
another painting about
Hold on, Tail. Believe it or not, this is foreshadowing for the final boss.
There's an old
Oh, so is it like the kind of cool?
Hold on, pay attention, Joe. You gotta learn something.
ancients created and raised a beast
Ragnarok.
to end the long
Ragnarok.
but the beast
So there we go, Tail. We finally found the answer for ourselves.
the beast.
So the beast was
Size
created.
does not matter.
devastation.
So this beast that was created to end all war is what destroyed them.
You know what reminds me? Reminds me of that backstory about the bad guy of Monster Rancher, the Monster Rancher anime.
Oh, this reminds me of the bad guys from
You know
Sonic.
what's set?
You know what?
Set, Tail?
Oh well.
The lore and motivations in fucking Light Crusader are more interesting. Than
You know what
this.
else? You know what else I take? You know what else I take over this? The lore behind the Meta-X and Sonic X Season 3. Oh yeah, I freaking went there.
By the way, let me just, if you don't mind me, Joe, but let me bring Shiro up to speed. Shiro, how long have you been gone?
I just got back when they were explaining the foreshadowing, which I saw all of.
Okay, basically the lore is, there's a big beast that the ancients created and then destroyed the ancient civilization and blah blah blah. That's all you need to know. As for what you missed, and I was going to recap anyway because we kind of talked over it. Okay, remember how we had that on part 5, if I remember correctly, or was it part 6? Whatever. Like 10 parts ago or something, we had that supposed character development scene between Jiro and Kluke, right? Under the moon and shit, with that vocal tune. Well, we just recently had our second character development scene with Jiro and Shu. What happens is, Shu secretly knew that Kluke sometimes cries herself to sleep because, you know, her parents are dead and shit, and she still hasn't gotten over it. Second, Jiro really loves Kluke. Big surprise. And he confessed it to Jiro, and he said, if you do love Kluke, I won't stand in your way. But she was like, hey, I like Kluke, but not that way. So how about that? You really like her, and I just think she's a good friend. Let's leave it at that. And that's basically.
We'll go get the part, then we'll fix the machine.
Right.
That's the character development, everybody. Okay, Joe, but hope you enjoyed it because now it's 10 more parts without it.
You know, I'm actually gonna talk about the scene that came before that. Like, that was, I believe it or not, actually an interesting Maru scene. Now, okay, I'm not saying that like it was a brilliant thing, but in regards to how Maru's been handled, for one thing, it actually used his annoying factor for something good, to get Shiro and Shu to stop fighting so insistently, and for him to actually get it pointed out on him. Like, that was actually a funny scene, and yet a scene that showed that, as annoying as he can be, he still has something of a level head when it comes to this sort of stuff. Which means he finally has a redeeming quality, but they're probably not going to expand on this, and why are we in the factory?
Also, Tail, you see Tail.
Oh my god, it's the robot factory all over again, just... This is their excuse.
No. You see, guys, just like Aguchi fought himself. The factory dungeon was fucking genius. We have to do that again.
Jesus. Well, I guess it's better than the actual dungeon itself, though.
It would be more interesting if this was a rainbow factory.
Also, disclaimer from what I said before, despite this, I'm not an actual official psychologist, so don't take my words 100% of it. If you want to search an actual YouTuber that specializes in psychology, search for Dr. Wolf. He's a friend of Josh Torture for reference, and he's a good guy.
Yes, he is.
So in this factory, we actually have instead skeletons, of course.
Not that it's really worth having psychological discussions about fucking Blue Dragon. This game has all the psychology of a 2-year-old.
But Pedro, we just got a scene that actually had us talking for minutes about psychological stuff, and is that either a reflection of how bankrupt this game is in content, or the goodness of those scenes, I must wonder?
That's just the thing, Jova. The quote-unquote character development scene that we just had is basically the equivalent of two teenagers talking about which girl they like.
Oh, hey, I'll give it points for realism. Yeah. But yeah, I mean.
Also, another thing, those amoeba / Medusa enemy things, they're really annoying. Why? Because they keep.
Waste the time. Yeah, it's exactly those similar enemies, even in the Eternal Sonata. I remember them.
Yeah, they not only do they steal your MP, but they give it to the skeleton soldier, and they also heal the skeleton soldier. So if you play,
they waste time.
yeah. Oh, trust me, Tail. Wait till we get to the final dungeon, where the game officially. I'll just say this, Tail. I'll just say this, Tail. It probably puts the NES Final Fantasy games difficulty spikes to shame.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
I'm guessing it's incredibly shit.
Not just that, Shiroi. Here's one important
Shiroi,
thing.
Shiroi, something in this game being shit? Come on.
Not just that, Shiroi. Think about it for a second. Aside from establishing rules, in a sense that you get higher enemies as long as you go in the game, in the first Final Fantasy game, so logically in the final dungeon the monsters will be incredibly powerful, and I'm coming back later in a second, but there's also the fact that the vast majority of the spells and pretty much the attacks actually don't work properly, or they don't work at all. So you get stuff that's completely used because of coding. Remember, Square Enix was on the verge of bankruptcy when they made that game, so they were probably not at their best. But here's the thing, Shiroi. In true tradition that will be kept later on, in the final dungeon of the first Final Fantasy, you get a boss rush. So basically you get to face 4 bosses that you faced in the game previously. Here's the problem, since they're in the final dungeon, they need to be buffed. And here's the problem, the very first of these bosses, the Leech, actually has one of the most powerful spell in the game, and he's not really reluctant on using it on you. So it's all RNG. If you get really bad luck, your party's gonna get literally, because that's what's called in the NES translation, nuked to death before you can act. The most powerful magic in the first game is called Nuke, which later will be the player spell.
And that's why you should play the remakes.
The PSP version, which is the one I'm gonna record, is definitely the best one to do it.
Yeah.
Play.
As for Final Fantasy 3, the remake has been released on Steam, so it's incredibly
Yeah,
easy to
it's the same as the DS version, but basically more polished and with better audio quality. So definitely go for that.
Which reminds me, Square, I'm still waiting for Final Fantasy 8 and 9 on the PS4.
So is this like the same robot factory from Underground, or is it just a...
Jova. It's literally the same assets, because Sakaguchi thought that the previous iteration of this dungeon was so brilliant.
So why the heck are there skeletons in an otherwise mechanical area? This isn't even like a graveyard or anything. Why are there skeletons
so
here?
We have recycled assets, empty areas with basically almost nothing to do, forced conveyor belt mechanics which will annoys you, and out of place enemy placement.
Like seriously, there's more skeletons and jellyfish here than actual robots. What
well,
the?
Jova, thinking outside the box?
Shiroi, you come up with an explanation for
I
this.
guess they weren't.
This is not Boxboy, you're not allowed to use one of its rules.
Also, yes, Jova?
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you could pick up a nice kooky reason for why we're having this kooky, stupid situation.
Potatoes.
Also, again, this music is very unfitting. It's like something from The Godfather.
I mean, don't get me wrong,
I am honestly convinced Uematsu didn't actually know what the context for his tracks were when he was composing them, because almost every single track in this game is so unfitting to what's actually going on screen.
On their own time.
Well, did Joe Isashi knew the context of what he was about to compose when he steamrolled in 1 week for Ni no Kuni?
Yeah. Here's the thing, too. He wasn't given the details, but he was given a basic summary of what they wanted from him.
Okay.
What they did, it's kind of also a thing. What they mostly did, if you check behind the scenes development history on Ni no Kuni 1, what they basically did too is they gave both the Ghibli animators and Joe Hisaishi a basic idea of what the game was like, and they allowed just okay, now just do your thing, and then they adapted the game to fit their work. They allowed they allowed the Ghibli artists to basically just have total freedom, so they could draw as much gold from them as they could, because it goes back to Hino being a brilliant leader.
Okay. Goblin What
And that's probably the main reason why Izaishi had so much fun working on that, because he was allowed to just let his mind, let his creativity just flow.
There we go. Vitality.
Basically what happened here is Izaishi knew that there were going to be emotional scenes in the game, so he probably composed that beautiful piano theme that we all love from that game. You know the one.
Yeah.
He probably composed that like, okay, I'm gonna make something that's really emotional driven, kind of similar to the opening piano of Spirited Away and something. And then if I've looked at that piece and thought, okay, this would be perfect to use for emotional scenes. So, like the one where Oliver is grieving, for example. So we'll use this one for that.
Good.
And so they specifically allowed, and since the tune is so ambivalent in the sense that it fits so many different kinds of emotional scenes anyway, it allowed them to use that track a lot. And since the track is so beautiful anyway, it never feels repetitive. It's kind of like similar to the way they use the Kenichiro Saigo's soundtrack in the Yokai Watch anime, where even though we constantly hear the same emotional themes in the various scenes, it never feels repetitive because the music is just so damn good.
Mm-hmm. Here we go.
Whereas with this, I think it's the opposite. I think Uematsu wasn't even briefed on anything.
Yeah.
I mean,
keep in mind, thanks to the documentary that I saw, I think it was the other month, where he talked among other things how we composed One Winged Angel. We know what his thought process is for composing. He thinks of his composition piece by piece and then puts them together. So there is kind of like a thought process behind it. It's not just improvise on the spot. But here it's kind of a mess. It almost makes me feel as if he actually composed with an idea in mind, but then someone edited the music.
And now a random skull robot with a sight that came out of nowhere.
I don't even. But hey, staring down eternity.
There's also the fact too that it's Joe freaking Izaishi. He's a fucking genius.
Even the characters are shady. This game lampshades so poorly. I mean, I dare to say even worse than Super Paper Mario.
Super Paper Mario is fun though.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I don't think Super Paper Mario is a bad game, but it has a nasty tendency of winking at the audience and say, hey, isn't this totally like a cliche?
Well, just,
every single second. I mean, think of the J.J. Abrams written movie, but...
I understand that, but I'll still like that over what I've played of the first Neptunia game.
Well, that's because Compile Art instead is not just trying to be just referential, it tries to mix the Japanese more otaku culture with it.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things too, like, for example, one of the things that I like, for example, when we get to the first dungeon, and Compa's talking about, oh, there weren't any monsters here to begin with, and then Compa's like, oh, we might as well get some XP while we're at it, since I'm the heroine, I guess I need to fight monsters, right? Like, it's this kind of trope deconstruction is so lazy. It's the way they do it is so lazy. Just get it, because we're in the JRPG. It's I prefer the way Snack World does it, because Snack World is a little more subdued with it. It doesn't ring to the audience as hard as.
Or like the world is built around it instead of just treating it as the fourth wall that the characters recognize.
Mm-hmm. To give you an idea, Joe, are you still there, Joe, by the way?
Yep, I'm here.
Oh, okay, I'm just
letting you guys have some fun at it.
To give you an idea, Joe, in the first episode of Snack World...
Wait, oh my god, that guy, he literally pivoted around, his model just pivoted like a glitch. Why is this game so
It's called
lazy?
the Exorcist. The power of Christ compels you and shit.
This is lazy.
Sure
This is
did.
lazy. Oh, I mean, and then let's attach it to the ancient machine right away. So let me
was
get
gonna
this
say,
straight. The mechanism to control the moon lasers was in a town stranded out here the whole time.
And guess what, guys? Now we have a remote control that we're gonna take with us that allows us to control the moon laser moons.
So
Yay!
are we going to use to fight the giant robot?
We haven't set the output yet.
Uh,
We could blow the town.
Kinda, you'll see.
Can we use it to our advantage out in the field, which is a cool bonus?
It's only gonna be used in a specific minigame in the final dungeon of this 2.
Well, does this at
Yeah.
least mean that the moon... Okay. Question.
So
please.
yeah, let's blow the shit out of the barrier.
Just hope they don't break
it's
through
not
and
like
kill
it-
us all.
Exactly. Isn't this a bit dangerous? What if for some reason the moons are still shooting while...
Even the villagers are like scared.
I guess they'd rather die than be trapped here forever.
But it's cool, guys, because the moons stop shooting the moment the barrier...
Well,
um,
okay. To be fair, I guess we are controlling it with the module.
That's great.
See? Told you it was okay.
Thank you,
you.
Maru. Thank you. You actually did something useful. I'm not used to it, though.
Also, this village was immersed in the cold of the mountains. They should be pretty much frozen right now because they're being open to the world.
Well,
Oh!
to give you an idea, Jova, in the first, you know how in JRPGs, like Aerith being the prime example, where the nice girl characters are always flower sellers?
Huh.
Like, Snack World literally starts with completely subverting that trope
Boy, the
by
cro-
having by having a Shays a thief that supposedly stole a little flower girl's wallet, but turns out she intentionally yelled thief so she could keep his wallet instead.
Not only that, but...
She's actually the bad guy.
Oh, so level 5 have a thing for that, since they also kind of debunked the whole cliche of a flower girl being nice in the crossover.
That may be
That too, yeah.
Bro.
Though with Snack World is literally intentionally made supposed to be something. That's the whole idea behind Snack World, drawing humor from.
Jeez, the crossover was when I really like the archetype of the character.
I also really love how where they get stuck in fighting Medusa and then they literally go to snappedia.com to look for strategies.
The sky is true.
Like, the act, well, it was a series, but the
Yeah.
actors actually looking up their own FAQ.
Hey guys, I was so happy for having saved these people.
Oh, wait,
I was
hold
like,
on.
Oh, it's okay, guys, but it's okay, Teo, because Nobuo Uematsu is going to give us a beautiful, touching piece.
So-
we can. Aren't you so happy, Teo, that we saved Chestown?
So,
Tears are just flowing.
so when does the coal front come in and cause,
I'm sorry, Joe. I'm just.
It's like tears in the race.
So when does the coal front come in and cause a famine that reduces their crops?
Joe, you're a heartless monster. You know that. How
Although-
can you not be happy?
Okay. So like, okay. Maybe this village is like in a bowl in the mountain, and that's why the atmosphere here is somehow warmer. I mean, okay. To be fair, I guess they must have settled here at some point on the mountain before it got all frigid and cold, so...
So yeah, aside from getting the remote control for the moon.
Oh
this
my god,
entire
from the moment
town-
I first met you, I knew you would help us even though I acted completely terrified of you eventually.
Yeah. Slut. Anyway, let's check the accent. Actually, no.
I guess this theme is nice.
Yeah, the theme is good.
Yeah,
The
it's
problem is
good.
that again, this is the part where I'm supposed to feel really accomplished that I saved this city that I've grown to care about, even though I know nothing about anybody.
See, I think the problem is like, well, you know, maybe if our reward was, hey, the town actually likes us now, then that would be a good sense of reward. But no, the town already grew to like us, so that kind of reduces your sense of reward. Like, seriously, isn't this kind of writing 101, even if it's cliched? Town hates you at first, but then when you actually do good in front of them, the town then likes you. Like, that would at least give us a sense of reward and consequence with the story.
But nope, bye.
Bye. Bye, Chestown. And yes, we're never coming back here ever again.
The music is so beautiful, and yet it doesn't matter.
The music is actually really, I will agree with Joe, but that particular music is actually probably my favorite track in the entire game.
So much
You're
so that we
right,
came
Pedro
back for it.
immediately came back.
Hi, you're one of the few villagers we bothered to come back to just to hear your awesome music. Goodbye.
I wanted to check if the music was still playing even after we leave the town for the first time.
And it is.
But yeah, again, just to finish this off, yeah, like Joe was saying, that piece of music is actually really beautiful, and yet, like Joe said, it's complete. I feel nothing because the payoff that's associated to that piece of music is so empty. I feel nothing but numb. Teo, why can Sakaguchi make me feel something?
He can, but just not for this game, apparently.
But that's a thing, Joe. But that doesn't explain Spirits Within.
Wasn't Spirits Within the thing that even he was ashamed of?
No. Remember, Joe, it was a big passion project for him. Tell him to.
Oh yeah, I've heard.
Okay. Well, okay. To put it quickly, basically, Sakaguchi's mom died somewhere in the mid-90s, and that project was basically his way of creating a story about life after death. He kind of did that.
I thought that's what 7 was for.
Yeah, it was both of them. Like basically, 7 was kind of the prototype for that, but Spirits of Him was basically his big grieving method. His way of grieving was to create a shitty movie.
Seriously,
Sadly.
7 did it so much better, but don't worry, we've got a whole upcoming commentary to discuss that.
Yeah.
But now,
All right.
see you next part.
See you, everybody.
So yeah.